Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and just spreading positivity to others. We're all about the positive vibes here on the show. And I've got a very special guest with me today. He has wrestled for a wide array of companies. I'm talking WCW, TNA, World Wrestling All-Stars. He's been all over the world. And I'm very pleased to welcome him to the show, Mr. Allan Funk. Allan,
Hey,
welcome
thanks.
to Wrestling with Heart.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, you grew up in Ohio. Tell me about your childhood and upbringing.
Yeah, a little town called Alliance, Ohio. It's about an hour southeast of Cleveland, Ohio. 20 minutes east of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's in a decent area. Not much to do around Alliance, Ohio, unless you travel, for an hour or so to go maybe like Cedar Point or football games and stuff like that. But I grew up, in a pretty, middle class family. Dad worked, mom didn't work. Raised great, always camped and stuff as kids and fished and hunted and did all the good stuff like that up in Ohio. I had a great childhood, man. Went to Marlington High School in Alliance, Ohio. Great school, man. Still talk to a lot of my friends that I had back then. So, getting on TV and wrestling didn't really change who I was. I was raised right. My parents raised me good. So, that part of it I'm grateful for. And I wouldn't have changed how I grew up for nothing.
Yeah, you definitely had that small town experience, got to hang out with friends and family, do pretty amazing outdoor activities. You could go anywhere, it seems like, outside of the small town into the big city. I mean, you mentioned the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is also there. Were you big into music as well?
They actually didn't open up. I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I can't remember what year it was, but I actually did go visit it with my sister that passed away. We got to see that together. She was a big like Pink Floyd and all the kind of '70s. She grew up in the '70s, so that kind of music. She really enjoyed going there, and I got to see that with her before she passed away. So yeah, I don't even remember what year they opened up that Hall of Fame, to be honest with you. But I don't. It wasn't there when I was a kid for sure. But and you know what? I never even got to go visit never went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Growing up, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so doing stuff like that was kind of not out of the question. It was just something that we didn't really do because we did other stuff that didn't involve tons of money for us to have fun.
Sure. I mean, you had to find other alternative ways to spend that leisurely time, And so, was wrestling a big deal growing up for you and your family?
Oh yeah, man. We'd always sit around, me, my mom and dad, we'd watch wrestling all the time. My sister didn't really get into it too much. But man, Saturday mornings I'd got up early, watch my cartoons, and then starting at 10 o'clock, I'd watch the WWF back then. Like the Superstars wrestling came on at 10 a.m. and then shoot the rest all day long till about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then if the Saturday night main event was on, we stayed up 11:30, watched Saturday night main event instead of Saturday Night Live. And that was my whole Saturday and Sunday is watching wrestling, man, growing up. But unfortunately, we didn't really have cable out in our area until I was probably in high school sometime when my dad could, afford to get us cable. So then I got opened my eyes up to more of the, I got to watch TBS and the WCW, NWA. So that kind of opened my eyes up to a little different stuff other than the WWE. And then we had ESPN, so I could watch World Class and AWA. So that was always, fun watching them other shows other than just watching WWF.
Yeah, it seems like that the network stations only carried one particular company versus cable, where you had so many options to choose from. So that's
Yeah.
really
You're
cool.
in the
You got that.
Northeast where I was. You pretty much just had WWF back then.
Yeah. So when watching the WWE, WWF back then, who were like your favorites to watch?
Well, I don't know if you see behind me here. This here is Hulk Hogan's shirt, actually from the second annual Survivor Series. I actually caught it, and when I worked with him in WCW, he signed it for me. And it says,
Sweet.
"To Allan, stay strong and kayfabe, Hulk Hogan." So Hulk Hogan is one of the. I mean, everybody when I grew up, everybody knew me as a big Hulk Hogan fan. You couldn't see an inch of my wall. They all had Hulk Hogan posters all over my wall. Uh, when I was actually old enough to, I bought myself a '65 Plymouth Valiant in high school, and I actually spray painted Hulkamania on the sides of it, and in yellow. It was a red car, and I drove that to school, and everybody knew me as like they called me the Funkster back then, which was funny because I actually did a gimmick called the Funkster back with WWE and WWE when I was with WWE, and I also did that over at All Japan Pro Wrestling with the Great Muta and his company.
Hulk Hogan was like the ultimate babyface. So many people loved him. You had kids that loved him, teens that loved him, adults even loved Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
he went on that monster run, I mean, who could forget Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3, the body slam heard around the world, or even WrestleMania 2 with King Kong Bundy in the steel cage. I mean, he provided so many moments that people still talk about.
Oh man, back then, he was bigger than life. All the kids looked up to him back then, man. It was there wasn't too many people that I knew back then other than, some of my buddies that liked other wrestlers and they liked some heels, so they always, screwed me a little bit. But it was all in good fun. And actually back then I was fans of other wrestlers, but ultimately I was a Hulk Hogan fan, from top to bottom, man. I didn't really I recognize other people's talents, but I didn't realize until I met a lot of the guys when I was in WCW and WWE that they were actually pretty cool guys, most of them.
Yeah, and I mean, what was there a particular moment that a light bulb went off in your head and I said, I want to try this. I want to go into this.
Yeah, that light bulb was on in my head from day one, man. When I was a kid, that's all I ever wanted to do after that. And people I went to high school with and stuff. If you talk to any of them, they'd tell you the same thing. And a lot of those people, I still talk to this day, and they're proud of the goal that I set for myself, and I achieved it. So I have a lot of support from the people back in Alliance, Ohio, which means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a dream for something, you shoot for the stars, you go for it, as hard as you can. And so you got into wrestling. I believe you made your debut or started working in the 90s. What tell me about your training background and walk me through the process, because it's not rocket science. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very hard, to get into this.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, actually, being from a small town where I'm from, there's not too many, options. And back then, I graduated high school in '89. I started training probably in when I was 21. I met a guy. His name was Firehouse, Michael Firehouse, and he was a volunteer fireman, so his gimmick was a volunteer fireman, so it was a legit gimmick. And he had in the fire department owned a old like elementary school, so they let him set up a ring in the elementary school, and he let me. I got a hold of this guy, and I don't even remember how I got a hold of him. I found out where he lived. He lived in some little small town, Robertsville, Ohio. So I drove down there and I met him, and then I told him I was interested in wrestling stuff, and he let me train his ring. And actually an old tag team partner of mine when I first started in wrestling, Greg Anderson, he he was helping train me in there. Basically, it was me and Greg. Michael Firehouse didn't really train in there with us much, so it was basically Greg Anderson was teaching me a lot of stuff. And we just did what we saw on TV, and we just we thought we knew what we were doing. To be honest with you, wasn't really like a formal training facility. But now Greg, he trained at a guy's named Kid Collins down in Mansfield, Ohio, and I just didn't want to go that route because I didn't really have back then, the money to be driving 2 hours to go train and this and that. So I was trying to do stuff that worked for my schedule and my budget. And so Greg he did a great job teaching me the ins and outs of what he knew from his school he went to. And so then we started wrestling, and I think our first match was against, I don't know if you've ever heard of these guys, the Batten Twins. And they were a real big tag team back in the '80s and like world class, and they wrestled in Puerto Rico a lot. And they were great guys to learn from. So I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from a guy named Chris Hahn. He's from Cleveland, Ohio, and he did a lot of indies around us. And there's Lou Marconi, another guy I worked with, he was the NWA champion within the last few years. So I got to learn a lot from different guys. We worked with Iron Mike Sharp. He worked a few of our shows, and just learning from guys that have been on like WWE superstars. Where they were kind of the job guys. I worked with a lot of those guys in indies, and I learned a lot from those guys, and then I kind of evolved from there. And then I knew I had to get to the next level, and I always wanted to get in WCW or WWE, and I really didn't know how to get to either one of those. And then I'm not really sure how old you are, but back when you used to watch Nitro, the Monday Night Wars and stuff, you'd see commercials for the power plant, WCW's power plant, where the big boys train. And that was kind of like their gimmick back then. The WCW is where the big boys play, and then the power plant was where the big boys train. And so I my girlfriend at the time, I told her, I said, I'm gonna have to do something like this. Like, I didn't know how to get to WWE, so this was kind of right out in the open. And you just had to call the number, set up a trial. You got a 3-day trial, and then then if you made it through the 3-day trial, which was total hell, man, it was brutal, and not too many guys make it through there. And I was one of the few guys that actually made it through the power plant and then got a contract on TV. So out of the hundreds of guys, maybe thousands, there was only a handful of us that ever made it on TV that weren't handpicked already, going through the tryouts and stuff. Now, there was guys like Goldberg and Paul White and guys like that, but they'd already kind of been in the system. And from the guys that actually paid the $250, did the 3-day trial, made it through it, and then got on TV, there was very, very few of us that actually, completed the 3-day trial and actually got a contract.
Well, whether it's WWE or WCW, you saw an opportunity and you went ahead and seized it. So that's big ups to you for being able to do that and wanting to do that. And they put you through the ringer, it sounds like, in the power plant.
Yeah, and there are a lot of videos you can go on YouTube and watch. And they did a special. It was called I think the History of Pro Wrestling. A&E did a special, and they showed the brutality of the 3-day trial. But actually, what they showed on TV actually didn't do it justice. Like, there's, I've seen grown men literally crap their pants, and I'm not kidding. They would literally, it was so brutal. They were trying to make you just quit. They didn't want anybody to make it through the trial. Well, it's not that they didn't want anybody to make it through the trial. They wanted to make sure you had the heart, that you had the will to, to be there, and that's what you really wanted. They wanted to weed out the guys that really didn't belong there. But on the other, the flip side of that coin was they probably got rid of a lot of good athletic talent because of the brutality of the tryout. But I had that mindset that, if I'm paying $250 to do a tryout and I got 3 days to, impress somebody, nobody was going to make me quit, and they didn't. So, it was probably one of the hardest things I ever did in my life. And just to give you an example, there are guys that were in the Marine Corps, they were in the, Special Forces, they were in Army, Green Berets. They went through the 3-day trial and said they'd rather go back to an 8-week boot camp than do a 3-day trial with WCW ever again. So it was, and I'm not just saying that because I went through it. It was literally one of the hardest things a 3-day tryout could be. It was, you couldn't have got any harder than what we went through for 3 days.
Well, it seems like they had you do a lot of drills, and they just worked you pretty hard, and it's, just goes to show that the sport of pro wrestling, it's to be taken seriously. And
yeah, and they took it serious, and that was another thing that they wanted to get. The guys that were down there training, like Pistol Pez Watley, he's an old school 80s wrestler. You had Ron Reese, you had Prince IK, you had these guys in there that took it serious, and they didn't want punks coming in there and trying to make a mockery of the sport and stuff. So I agree with everything they did in the tryouts, because like I said, it weeded out guys that didn't belong there. And most of the guys that made it through there, man, you weren't making them quit. And no matter what you did, like, for instance, I broke my nose on my tryout, my 3-day tryout. I broke my nose first day.
Wow.
Well, after we did like probably 1,500 squats a day minimum. You're doing push-ups. It's so hot, and I did mine in July. So I don't know if you've ever been in Atlanta in July, but right now, like, it's been 100 degrees every day this week, man. 105 one day, 103 the other day. So I did my tryouts in the middle of July, and we're actually doing push-ups and sit-ups and stuff right on the blacktop outside. That's how brutal this thing was. You know, you had guys with them blisters on their back from, you know, they're making you do push-ups. Your hands are burning on the asphalt. You know, minimal water. They said whoever was like the first complete a deal and then run through the door and get water, you're the only one allowed to get a drink of water. So, you know, of course, everybody's trying to fight to get in the door. And then I actually was the first in the door one time, and I had a thing of water that I got out of the cooler. As soon as I filled it up, boom, they walked it out of my, you know, slapped it out of my hands, and I didn't even get a drink. So that's just the brutality of it. And, you know, I've seen guys go through walls down there. Chase Tatum, which he passed away, he was a WCW worker at one point. Real big guy. He actually speared somebody through the drywall right to the locker room. And then they never even fixed it. They just put a banner over it, like a WCW banner. So, you know, they didn't. So it was kind of like a reminder, you know, if you want to screw around and, you know, kind of F around and find out, the saying is today now. Yeah, it was nuts down there. The 3-day trial was, I can't even explain to you how hard it was.
Like every man for himself.
Pretty much. And then after you did, that's what I was going to say. After you do the drills and stuff, they'd throw you in the ring, and 3 or 4 guys, maybe 5 guys would jump on you, start kicking you, trying to get you in like submission holds, and just beat the crap out of you, man. Like, just to see if you were going to get mad and try to fight back or see what you were going to do. And that's how I broke my nose. I had a bunch of guys jump on me, and somebody kicked me. I went to kick somebody off, and their elbow smashed me in the nose and broke my nose. And, you know, my nose is bloody, you know, and it's just one of those things you had to endure to make it.
Now, when you, after all the injuries and stuff, were you able to fight back and whenever somebody was messing around with you?
Yeah, but I mean, you were in a no-win situation, man. I mean, you could, and the reason why I kind of stood out during my tryout, there was probably 17, 20 guys in my tryout. Within probably, I would say, 30 minutes, there was maybe 8, 9 of us left. And then within a couple hours, man, there was only 3 of us left. So doing the rest of the first day and the last 2 days with 3 guys, that give all these guys in there doing a tryout, you were pretty much had 4 or 5 guys just, you know, yelling in your face, making you do stuff, and you couldn't slack because you had, you know, all these eyes on you. So there was no other 15, 20 guys to take the attention away from you. There for the first couple hours, there was a bunch of guys they were dying, man. So everybody was kind of on them, yelling at them, and that's how they weed them out, you know. Yeah. So kind of all the eyes weren't on you at that point. But then when there's only 3 of you left the first day, you got pretty much everybody concentrating on you 3, and it made it worse.
Yeah, definitely sounds intense. Now, you started with the company on television, I believe, in the late 90s, 98, 99?
I did my tryout in 98. I got my contract in 99. We started doing the Saturday night TV tapings. It was on TBS. And then from there, we went to the Nitro and Thunder. Most of the guys, and I say we, I mean like Chuck Palumbo, Rick Cornell, Elix Skipper, Mark Jindrak, and Mike Sanders, people like that was in the power plant with us.
What was it like finally being able to make it to television? And do you remember when you got that call saying, hey, you're ready to go?
Yeah. Well, we were in the original power plant when I first started. It was on Carroll Drive in Atlanta, and it was a total crap hole, man. This place was a warehouse that was dirty, had like cockroaches and rats, and it was nothing like you would picture. The first day you walk into this place, you're like, man, you know, I'm thinking WCW, this is going to be state-of-the-art facility. You know, you walk into this thing and you just get belittled and talked down to because they're trying to make you quit. And it was dirty. You're trying to do push-ups on these mats, and all the sweat and bugs are crawling on the floor, dude. And it was pretty brutal. So then at that point, when we got our contracts, Paul Orndorff came in and took over as the director over Jody Hamilton, which is one of the Mass Assassins. Him and Swords, Buddy Lee Parker, was the head trainer. So Paul took over, and we went to the new facility, which was on Log Cabin Drive, which was the WCW corporate offices. So then we had a state-of-the-art facility. We had 4 rings set up. We had a nice gym. We had cardio equipment upstairs. And it was a 5-star training facility. And I remember we were down there, and me and Kid Romeo, Sam Roman, he wrestled. He was the first cruiserweight tag team champs with Elix Skipper. They beat Mysterio and Kidman. Me and him always got along real well, and we wrestled real good together. So we did a lot of indie shows together, trying to get ready for TV and stuff. So he came in. somehow befriended Kevin Nash, and Kevin Nash was the booker at this time, which I became good friends with Kevin after that. But Kevin came down to the power plant, and Sam said he wanted to work me on TV and for our first match. So I was grateful that Sam thought that highly of me. That he knew he could have a good match with me on TV, and you know, and it was something that out of all the power plant guys, that me and Sam were kind of the two guys that actually got on TV first, which was a big honor, and it was a quite accomplishment because we had a lot of talent in that in that power plant at the time, and so me and Sam wrestled 2 matches on our first show. Which, if you did 2 matches, you were on. They only taped it every other week, so if you got to do 2 matches, that means you were on TV for the next 2 weeks, which is the goal. So we got to wrestle 2 matches. He went over on one, and I went over on the other, and we kind of set up a rivalry for the Saturday night show, which, with the help of Kevin Nash, which I'll be forever grateful for him for helping us get that spot.
The thing that's pretty fascinating to me about having more than 1 or 2 big television shows is the exposure for young talent like yourself or Billy Kidman or Rey Mysterio, Mark Jindrak. All these young guys will have the opportunity to shine, while the big names like the Hogans and the Savages and Bret Harts, they're like wrestling on the big shows. But something for you guys to work towards is to work on the smaller shows and eventually get called up to the big time. So that's pretty cool. It's something, you don't see very often nowadays, but something I wish they could bring back is that opportunity for the smaller guys to work, have a place for them to shine, work their way up to
they
the
got
bigger.
the NXT, which to me, that doesn't really count because they're on TV already. They got their own show, their own brand and stuff. So it's a lot different than it was when we were there, for sure.
So you make it to TV, you're having these matches. Favorite opponents to work against or to work with?
Yeah, a lot of the guys I'm gonna have to say from the power plant, just because we came up together and we always had great matches, because we all had the same thing in mind. We wanted to make each other look good. We wanted to impress the people that we needed to impress, and we wanted to continue to wrestle on TV and build names for ourselves, and someday make millions of dollars and be a top draw. But that kind of didn't work out that way for most of us. But it was just the way the business was, and I would say, I love wrestling Elix Skipper. I love wrestling Chuck Palumbo, Sean O'Hare, which me and Mike Sanders used to be a tag team. We wrestled on the Saturday night show. And, the first time Sean O'Hare and Jindrak came out as a tag team, me and Mike Sanders put them over on the it was either a WCW Worldwide or it was a Saturday night show. I can't remember. But yeah, doing stuff like that, was great because all of us, like I said, we like to help, everybody out. So, we do a job for whoever to try to get them over, and, they do the same for us. So we all had the same mindset, and, we all tried to help each other out. But, I will say I wrestled the Great Muta over in Japan. I wrestled him in a main event, actually. And I'd say that was probably one of my greatest matches of all time because, Great Muta's a legend, man. He just got dumped in the Hall of Fame. And,
yep.
He's one of those guys in Japan that he's bigger than the sport. Like it's crazy. Like he's
an icon.
He's one of the all-time greatest, man. Especially if you're over in Japan, like don't get much bigger than a Great Muta. So I'll definitely have to put him up there. But I got to wrestle Goldberg and Kevin Nash and a lot of these guys, and I became good friends with Macho Man. So everything I did in the business means a lot to me because it was something I always wanted to do, and I was raised kind of poor, and growing up with nothing. So I really appreciated all of the guys in WCW and WWE that met over the years, and the hard work that everybody puts in, and for the most part, everybody tries to help each other out.
And now you also had a character that you had called Kwee Wee, the Kwee Wee, and you got paired up with Charmel, aka Paisley. What was it like working with her?
Oh, she was awesome, man. She was top notch. Her, I like when they let her like speak because her voice was incredible. She was real meticulous, and made me look better than as far as like with her voice and stuff, because I didn't really honestly like the character, and I didn't really know how to act the way they wanted me to act because I wasn't comfortable doing that. But I tried to make the best out of it, and it was always good when she talked because, like I said, I didn't really like to talk, and it helped me out a lot. And she got to learn how to wrestle a little bit with Medusa down at the power plant. Excuse me. And so, we incorporated her to do stuff. She did like the back handspring and did stuff in the corner. And, we had some tag matches. So working with Charmel was great, man. She was first class, and she was professional. And every time that I volunteered us to do some autograph signings or extra stuff for the company, she was always 100% for it. And she never, never not wanted to do it. So it was good working with somebody that had kind of the same goals and wanting to get higher up on the ladder. And it was good working with her in that aspect.
You had said you weren't comfortable with the character. Why were you uncomfortable?
Well, first of all, it was kind of a gay character. And they give me this character knowing that it was like this and the way they wanted me to do it. But they told me in the same breath, if you get any gay chance or anybody's got signs that said gay, whatever, you're off TV. So, initially I'm thinking, well, I don't even really want to do this character, but I don't really have a choice. So I got to kind of do it in a way where, if I get these chants that they're talking about, or, I get any negative feedback, they already told me they're going to take me off TV. So I thought, man, they're setting me up for failure. But the good thing is I could do the Angry Allan on top of the, the spinoff of Don't Make Me Angry. And then I snap and I get, I had a bad temper, and that's kind of me in real life. So it kind of worked for me because I'd rather do that part of the character than the Kwee Wee stuff. But, I didn't mind wearing the pink and all that kind of stuff because it kind of stood out. It was a little different than everybody else was doing. And I thought it might, as long as I didn't get the negative feedback, that I thought it might be able to, mold into something, which it started doing until the company got bought out.
Yeah, you definitely found a way to make it work. And WCW got bought out in 2001 by the WWE. Was your contract picked up by them?
Yeah, so I got a call from Johnny Ace, which is Johnny Laurinaitis. So he was running a lot of the stuff backstage in WCW. So then he went over to WWE when they bought him out. So at first I really didn't know what to think. I knew they were picking up my contract, but we were kind of blind, man. We didn't have any clue what was going on. Nobody was really telling us anything. And then so Johnny called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, listen, WWE's picking up your contract. You got 2 weeks to move to Cincinnati, Ohio from Atlanta, and do whatever you got to do. We don't give a, we don't care what your wife thinks. We don't care what you think. You need to move up to Cincinnati, and you need to do it within the next 2 weeks. And that's just the way it is." So, of course, I got a little bit of, my wife didn't really care for that too much because she didn't have a say-so in it. I didn't have a say-so in it. So it was kind of one of them things where, you kind of want to talk to your wife about it and see how it's, but you really don't have a choice. So, you just tell her, listen, this is what I got to do. And, sorry, but you don't have any feedback. Hell, I don't even have any feedback in it. So, it's kind of one of them things that's part of the wrestling business that a lot of people don't, think that's possible. They just see all the glitz and glamour on TV and they don't realize all the stuff you got to go through to get there.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of hustling, and hustle and bustle. You just have to work through a bunch of things in order to be successful. It's like with any business, really. But what happened? Were there plans for you to make it to the main roster? You got released in December, I know, of that year.
Yeah, we got released. Well, I was with them for about a year, so I think it was a year later.
Okay.
Like a lot of us, me, Elix Skipper, I can't remember, Rick Cornell, a few other guys. Basically, this is my take on it. I don't know if this is 100% true, but this is just from me being there. And now I'm looking back on it and seeing the writing on the wall when we got there. So they had an OVW, they had John Cena, they had Randy Orton, they had Batista, they had the Basham Brothers. They had Rico. They had a bunch of guys down there that were, they became WWE top stars, which like Randy Orton still is this day. So, so when we got there, we didn't necessarily go to OVW. We went there every Sunday to do a TV show with them. So, so we go to HWA, which was in Cincinnati. It was Les Thatcher's school. So then they bring the guys that were in Memphis, which is, you're talking about Umaga, Rosie and Jamal.
Yeah.
So you got them two. You got a guy named Lance Cade. He was Trevor Murdoch's tag partner. They were champions.
I remember him.
You got Steve Bradley, which was a hell of a talent. You got all these guys coming from their Memphis, which they already treated them different than us because they were already in WWE. We're the outsiders. We're coming in as the outsiders, which is the company that WWE bought, which WWE hated, and they bought the company. And then, so basically, what they did to us, long story short, was in my eyes, they had us get their guys ready for TV, and they got rid of all of us. And that's exactly what happened. Now, whether they want to admit that or not, that's another story. But that's exactly the way it went down, man. So they got rid of us 2 weeks before Christmas that year, and it is what it is, man. It sucks that it happened, but that's basically what happened.
Yeah. Were there any talks down the road about you possibly coming back,
Well,
or?
of course, when they release you, Johnny Ace, he's like, "Hey, Allan, I'm going to help you do stuff. I'll get you over to Japan." Blah blah blah. Never did. Never helped me. Never returned a call after that. So I got over to All Japan Pro Wrestling on my own, and with my hard work, and I knew people over there, so I started wrestling in All Japan then. And honestly, if I could have stayed in All Japan, just circumstances, I got hurt and stuff that one year, and couldn't wrestle for about a year, and I might still be over there. Who knows? But I got over to All Japan on my own accord and without the help of Johnny Ace, which I'd rather have done it that way anyway. Because I wouldn't want Johnny Ace thinking I owed him something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to make a living, and so you were able to make that jump. And wrestling in Japan's a whole different animal than wrestling in the States. What are
Yeah.
some of the key differences that you noticed when going
Well,
overseas?
when I was always smarting up from Sarge and Paul Orndorff down at the power plant. If you ever go to Japan, man, you can't be, for lack of a better word, a pussy. If someone pushes your buttons, push their buttons. Someone hits you, stiffs you, you stiff them right back. So if you're a pushover, you're not going to make it in Japan very long because they test the Americans. They want to see, kind of, if you got the heart, if you're going to fight back, they want to see what kind of character you got. And I actually fit in pretty good in Japan. Guys that stiff me, I'd stiff them back. I wasn't the type of guy that was going to let somebody, pick on me and not do anything about it. So it was actually a good style for me, and I liked it. And I loved wrestling over Japan. And I worked with guys that were stiff, and guy Kawada. I worked with Kawada, which is a great dude, man. He was one of the best guys to work with over there. And because Kawada, man, you knew where you're getting. You worked stiff, you competed, and you showed up, and you did what you needed to do, and in turn they'd have respect for you. So I really love the Japanese culture, not just in the wrestling, but their culture in general. And I really fit good over there. And I was going to move over there, and I was going through a divorce, so I didn't get a chance to move over there, which probably would have helped me out a lot if I could have.
Did you also get a chance to wrestle in Mexico at all, or other places outside the country?
No, you know what? I never did get a chance to go to Mexico. Now, the Blue Demon, which is a real popular wrestler in Mexico, I wrestled with him in Lucha Libre USA, and he always said he was going to bring me over there, but he never did. For whatever reason, I don't know. Just never worked out. But he was a real good dude, man. And he I always worked good with him. And I worked with like Rocky Romero. He's still in New Japan now to this day. And I think he's in the office over there. But I wrestled with a lot of good guys over, the years. And it just didn't work out going to Mexico. But, I got to wrestle all over the world, and it was a great experience.
We're going to switch gears now. Let's kind of switch gears, talk about the stuff you've done outside of the ring, as far as like doing acts of charity or community service. What kind of organizations have you worked with as far as doing charity or stuff?
I like doing stuff for the blood drives. Always donating blood. I'm up to about 5 gallons now donating blood. So, right now, real crucial for blood donors. So, if you know anybody thought about donating blood and wants to donate blood, please do it, man. Just all you got to do is download the app, and the blood donor app, man. And you can set up appointments through that and donate every 90 days, which I do. And I'm always involved in the blood drives. And as far as like other charities go, not really involved in them, but I do like donating money to breast cancer research, because I've had, and my mom, dad, my brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, all passed away from cancer. So and most of the women in my family had breast cancer. So it's something that means a lot to me to donate to like the Susan G. Komen or any cancer organization.
Cancer's never fun, and it's definitely a terrible, terrible disease to die from.
Oh yeah.
What kind of got you like interested in starting to donate blood? You had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, it was my dad. When I was 17, he always donated blood. My dad had, I don't know how many gallons he had, but he's always like, yeah, Alan, it's important to donate blood. And, you're 17, you got to think about it. So he was in the armory, the National Guard. So they had a blood drive one day when I was 17. So I went over there and donated blood, and pretty much been donating blood ever since. So it's just something I like doing. And, I know it saves lives and helps people out, and it, just something I've always done. And it's easy to do. You just go there and you're there for a few minutes, and you help save a life.
Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community, whether it's with the blood drive or with the cancer donations?
Well, I mean, a lot of time in which this is what I loved about pro wrestling, which opened doors for me to talk to kids, and kids look up to you because you were on TV and stuff like that. So in my eyes, you got to take advantage of that. You got to try to give the kids, positive encouragement. You got these kids, a lot of these kids, like me, I grew up not poor, but we didn't have much. And we lived in a below average house, and so you're always kind of discouraged because you see other kids with better shoes and better jeans and this and that. So it's good to encourage kids to doesn't matter your upbringing, it doesn't matter what kind of money you got. If you want to do something, man, your mind is a powerful thing. And it's good to be positive to kids, and let them know that just because they don't have anything now doesn't mean they got to do that the rest of their life.
Absolutely. Listen, Allan, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. It means a lot to me and the listeners and viewers watching this on YouTube. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, just Allan Funk, or my name backwards, Funk Allan, Allan. A lot of people misspell my first name, but just Funk Allan, like at Instagram and Facebook. I do have a Twitter account, or an X account, or whatever you want to call that now. It's Allan Funk 5. I don't really do much on that account. It's just I never did, so it's just one of them things where you're just not on it much. But I actually I do fun stuff on Instagram and stuff. I used to do a lot of politics and stuff, but I try to stay away from that stuff now because the way the politics and stuff are going these days, it's easy to get in arguments over that kind of stuff.
Too divisive.
Yeah, it is. And I went to a micro wrestling the other night with Cody Hawk. He used to wrestle down at HWA with Les Thatcher, and he's running the micro wrestling. And I tell you what, man, if you ever get a chance to go see these micro wrestlers, they're amazing. It was a great show. So I had a lot of fun doing that and post pictures on that, and, stuff like that.
Definitely will get that chance to check it out. But I just want to say, Allan, again, thank you for coming on, and you're more than welcome to come on back to the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, brother. Had a good time.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too, buddy.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.